is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Resurrect, and today we are talking about how much money you can make rebuilding salvage cars, and we're doing that by discussing specific examples. So today's example is a 2012 C63 AMG. Now, before I get too much into this video, I want to let you know that although this car was considered kind of like a salvage car, technically this was not a salvage title. So I want to disclose that before I start off. I don't want to lead anybody down the wrong track here, but I think this car is worth considering, and I think there's some interesting lessons to be learned from this particular deal. So, and I just want to also tell you that the purpose of these videos is not to brag or gloat about how much money I made on a specific deal. The purpose is to show you guys, generally speaking, what a good deal is at the salvage auction, where you should be about price-wise if you want to try to make money. The average Gen Zer is making more money in a week just tapping on their iPhone screen. Whereas these cars, when you rebuild them, you're going to be probably a few months. If you're doing it yourself, it's a lot of sweat equity, blood, sweat, and tears goes into these projects. So, you really do have to make big dollar amounts when you're doing this kind of work, and you got to consider the amount of money you would pay in labor and shop time if you were going to have other people fix it, so money has to be made. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. And one more purpose of these videos is that, sometimes I see people buying cars, or I'll talk to other people who are going to auctions looking for deals, and they just get burned out looking for deals or losing everything. Guys, there is always deals out there. You just got to look a little harder. You've got to check more auctions, open up your map a little bit, and maybe step out of your comfort zone, where maybe in dealing with a different type of car, because sometimes there's trends in auctions. People are going for this or they're going for that. Well, wherever everybody else is going, you got to try to go in the other direction. And really, there's just constantly deals out there. You just got to be vigilant and alert and know when it's a good deal and then jump on it. So let's get into the actual this actual deal and disclose some of the details of it. But this particular car was purchased from Mannheim TRA, which is, I don't know if you know about Mannheim auto auctions, but that's typically a dealer auction, dealers only. However, if you buy cars through some type of online broker, eRepairables or Auto Bidmaster or some type of similar website, they line up auctions, all different types of auctions. So they're going to have Copart, insurance auto auctions, and sometimes you'll see stuff from ADESA in-op, as well as Mannheim TRA. And, they don't always tell you what auction it's at, but you can tell by the stickers on the windshield of which auction it's coming from. So, typically when you buy from Copart or insurance auto auctions, the main purpose of those auctions are to deal with insurance companies. That's their biggest customer. And, with insurance companies, most state laws require that, if an insurance company totals a car and they take possession of it and they get a title in their name, they have to rebrand that title. They can't just go sell a clean title car that's damaged. It's just legally, it's not possible for them. However, at other auctions, and sometimes at Copart and IAA, you will find clean title wrecked cars, and a lot of times these will come from banks, financial institutions, rental car companies. A lot of times these type of organizations might be self-insured, so they're not required to change the title status and sell it as a salvage car. They can actually sell some pretty damaged stuff and it has a clean title on it. So, as a buyer, it's good to know that. And also as a flipper, it's good to know that, because, rebuilding cars can be a hassle, the paperwork and everything. And if you can just pick up a car that has a clean title and you can get it fixed nice and right, that's going to save you a lot of time. And, even if the car has been totaled, but it has that clean title, it's still worth more than a car with a salvage title, because a person can still get a car loan. It's much easier to insure. There's more value in a clean title car that was destroyed versus a salvage title car, where there's more hang-ups in the paperwork. So the bottom line is, though, that the level of damage on a car at salvage auctions, there's no real correlation between a car that was totaled, a car that was not totaled. You know, a lot of people like to think that the word totaled means the car is totally destroyed. But really, the insurance companies, when they total a car, this is a completely financial decision. This is based on estimates they get from body shops. So it's not like the adjusters go in there and they're like looking at the car and like, oh, this is unsafe and it's too bad. No. When they get the numbers back from the body shop, they just look at numbers, and then they look at what the car's worth. And you know, if the numbers come back and it's just too high, too expensive, they're going to total it. But you know, it doesn't always indicate too the level of damage. Cars with a heavy level of damage get repaired and put back on the road by the insurance companies all the time. You know, if the body shop's willing to do the work for a reasonable price, they will let the body shop, you know, dismantle that car into 100 different pieces and reassemble it. If a body shop is willing to do it in a safe way for a reasonable price, the insurance company is going to let it happen. So, you know, salvage cars, people always think, oh, the cars at the salvage auction, they're totally destroyed. That is not always the case. And if you've been in the, you know, salvage car business, people know there's cars with all levels of damage. I mean, some are, yeah, totally destroyed, but others are in really great shape. So, you know, there's no correlation between salvage and the level of damage, none at all. So, you know, like we were talking about earlier, the rental car companies, they will sell a wrecked vehicle at, you know, a different auction. Typically, they do insurance auto auctions, but they also sell at these other auctions. And at dealer auctions, there's kind of more, there's more repercussions if there's just a junk car going through the auction. If you don't announce it at a dealer auction and you sell it, they call it a green light. If you sell it on a green light, and later on they find out that there's some serious things wrong with the car, that car can actually be returned to the seller and you don't have to pay for it. Whereas Copart insurance auto auctions, it's all as is. You bid on that car and it's yours. And if you don't pay for it, those auctions are done with you. You won't be able to set up an account with them anymore under your name. So dealer auctions work a little bit differently. But what they typically, like a financial institution, like where I got this car from, they will typically disclose, I'll make an announcement and say, you know, if it's a wrecked car, they'll say, this car is being sold on a red light. It's as is. It has frame damage or it has airbags that were deployed, and that will go on the vehicle history report. And there's no way to get that off. So a car that has those announcements, it's almost as bad as a salvage title, because, you know, people looking for cars, you know, they see that kind of thing, they're going to want a huge discount off the price when there's announcements like that. So this is kind of in the ballpark of a salvage title car, although, you know, not quite. So getting back to this actual deal, this was a 2012 C63 Coupe Edition 1. So Edition 1 means it's just like the regular C63 Coupe, but the paint will typically be a matte color. Most of the ones that I've seen are like a dark, sort of black, metallic matte color. It'll have the P31, P30 option, which gives you an extra 30 horsepower boost on the engine. They're gonna have like a special wheel set that you might not see on the other C63s, and some of the interior components are a little bit unique as well. So as far as I know, the only models that are higher than the Edition 1 for that particular year was 507 and the black model, which is crazy expensive. But, you know, this was a kind of an interesting car. So yeah, this car was announced that it did have frame damage and it did have the airbags deployed. So this would go on a Carfax. And now, the other thing I wanted to say too is banks and financial institutions, when they liquidate a car, a lot of times they don't want to see this car come back, and so they will announce frame damage when there is no frame damage, and this happens all the time. If they say frame damage and sell it on a red light, there's no way a seller could kind of arbitrate or try to return that car, because they're just saying the worst of the worst has happened to this car. I'm letting you know. I'm not taking it back. So they do this all the time, and I've gotten so many cars that had no frame damage, but they would just disclose that so they don't have to take the car back. They want to liquidate these cars. They're trying to free up money. They don't want to play any games. So the front bumper on this car was destroyed. The hood was messed up, which is unfortunate. These hoods are aluminum in these years. Some C63s, the earlier models, had steel hoods. But either way, these hoods are expensive and they're not easy to find. The left fender was destroyed. We had several airbags. The dash needed to be replaced. There was an airbag that went down, or a knee airbag under the driver's steering wheel. And that just blows out a small area under the dash, and it's a real shame that it's part of the dash. But it had to be replaced. It blew out a small section, and it was not repairable. And then there was a very weird airbag in the seat. It's called a thorax airbag, and that was very hard to find as well. So a lot of little things that had to be done to this car. Now, the actual purchase price of this car, after the fees and everything, and Mannheim TRA fees are way less than Copart. I mean, substantially less. Now, if you're going through the broker, they're going to have their fees. So, but still, even then, it's a lot less. So the amount paid for this car after fees was $14,970. And at the time, the car had a retail value of about $45,000. And the odometer on this car was 35,000 miles. So for a clean title car, that was a fairly good price, I think if it was a salvage title, I definitely wouldn't have gone up that high. So in this particular case, I've done a few C63s, but I decided not to buy a donor car in this situation, and I just pieced together the car with mostly used car parts. LKQ is a great resource for stuff like this. I did have to go to the dealer a little bit, as well as eBay. I rely on eBay heavily for used parts. I buy and sell on eBay. So this car took about 4 months to rebuild. Probably could have done it a lot quicker, but a lot of times when you're trying to find the best deal on parts, that slows you down. You've got to wait for these things to come in. So and really the level of damage on this car wasn't too bad. There wasn't any framework that needed to be done. I literally just had to unbolt things, front bumper, stuff like that, and then just bolt on the new items. So as far as the sale of this car was sold. I put it up for a or best offer type listing on eBay, 30-day or best offer, buy it now type deal. And I believe I listed it right at $38,000. Cars like this were selling 40, 42, but with little accident history or maybe one owner type cars. So it's trying to come in a little low there. And so the best offer I could get in 30 days, and a lot of times sometimes I'll try to set a deadline for my sale, and I'll just take the best offer I can get within a certain period of time. Because otherwise, you just got to keep moving, and you got to move on to the next deal. So I sold this car for the best offer of $35,000 in a little bit under 30 days. If I had bought a donor car, I think I could have made more on this deal. Based on other C63s where I've bought donor cars, I typically could make between $3,000 and $5,000 on that parts car. So maybe if I would have gone that route, I could have made a little bit more money. But let's talk about the profit that I made. Now, in a lot of the videos, you'll see me talking about net profit. And I understand the net profit is gross profit is like what you make on the deal. Net profit is like you have to deduct your expenses, and you're sort of if you have insurance or you're like a legit business and you have just operating costs, you would deduct that for a net profit. Now, when I say net profit, it's more kind of like a gross profit. However, seeing that I operate out of my house, I can't really make those deductions and like as many as the typical business would with like a rent. If you had rent or a mortgage to pay and stuff like that, those would be big deductions that you could come up with net amounts. So these net amounts are per project, and these are kind of loosely defined financial terms, so don't get caught up on my terminologies here. But so the net profit on this job after the expenses was $13,631. So I did have to pay $1,000 in additional labor for help. So I don't always do everything myself. I mean, obviously, it doesn't make sense. There's certain things that just don't make sense to do yourself. And in this particular situation, this paint job was really tricky. Now, I'm a pretty good painter, but I don't have the perfect painting environment, and a lot of times I need to do a little bit. I'll put extra clear coat on the car, and if there is an error, then I can usually cut and buff the paint and get it nice and flat and beautiful looking. But when you're dealing with matte clear coat, that's just not a possibility. You cannot just cut and buff matte clear coat. If you do that, you're gonna end up with shiny clear coat again. So when you spray matte paint, it's a different procedure, and you need to get it right the first time. That paint just needs to go on perfectly, and the way it lies down is the way it lies down. So, and the other thing is, you need a spray booth that is as clean as a laboratory to get the right look on a matte paint job. So I got with a buddy of mine who he sprays cars every day. He works for a body shop, like an insurance body shop, and he was helping out. He worked on the side a little bit for a place in Tampa called Coupe Customs, and they have a really nice shop that they loaned out to him to do this work, and he did a phenomenal job on it. The paint also on these matte cars, these European cars, the OE paint listed as the right paint to use was either like a Glazerite paint or a Standox, and the paint alone, I got some quotes on this paint, and it's crazy expensive. It was just for paint, clear coat and the color. It would have been about $1,300 just for the paint. So I was able to save a little bit money by going with a Matrix brand, which is also made by Valspar, and we did a test spray out, and that product was like a few $100, and we did a test spray, and it was so good. I mean, it looked so close, and the painter nailed it. We didn't have to do any blending, so we preserved as much of the original paint as possible. I don't like blending if I can get away with it, because once you lay over clear coat, the factory clear coat with your, whatever you're using, there's a good chance that it may not last as long as that original clear coat. So I try not to do a lot of blending if I can get away with it. All right, guys, so thank you so much for watching. If you like any of these videos, please hit that like and subscribe button. I do appreciate it. And every time you hit that like and subscribe button, somewhere, some guy with a Honda Civic with straight pipe exhaust, his car in a parking lot somewhere will just spontaneously combust into flames, which will allow you to make phone calls very easily. You can hear the person you're talking to. And the good thing about that is when these Civics end up back at Copart, you and I could bid on them. Well, we can flip them, make a profit, and put the mufflers back on those cars. So please hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.